Today I'm doing another request from Jesse. He wanted me to do the Mohawk Valley bottling works, and I remember him asking me earlier this year, but at that time I couldn't find anything. But he brought it up again, and I just happened to check again, and this time I found a few things. So let's get into it on this episode of Antique Bottle Stories. Today's story starts with a guy named Vincent Lisowski. He was born in 1886 in Poland. He came to America when he was 19. He married Anna soon after, and they had 3 boys and a daughter. Vincent's wife is 4 years older than him. One of their sons, Alexander, nicknamed Alec, he died when he was about 7 years old. That had to have been pretty rough. If we look at the 1910 census, Vincent's a cabinet maker at a desk factory. They have 7 other people living with them. Many of them are co-workers that work in the factory that he works in. I wonder why so many roommates. It's not like another family, it's like just a bunch of random people. 5 years later, in 1915, Vincent is a baker. Now, his obituary mentions that before he was in the bottling industry, he ran a bakery. I found out that his brother also ran the bakery with him. His brother's name was Bronislaw. I probably butchered that, but I'm not Polish, sorry. But luckily, he went by Benny. During World War I, Vincent's registration card said that he's a saloon keeper. So this would only be a couple years after he was a baker. This says that he's in business for himself. He lived at the same place throughout all of my research, 357 King Street. So let's go see if we can find it. Well, it's a parking lot now. That red house to the left there, that's 355. So 357 is gone. I was interested how big this house was to fit all these roommates. The houses nearby seem like they're decently sized. 1920 census. Vincent is 33 now, and at this point in time, Alec died 2 years ago, and their baby daughter, Helen, is 1 month old. The oldest son, John, is 12, and Joseph is 9. Vincent's occupation is proprietor of a saloon. 5 years later, in 1925, Vincent and the family have a bunch of roommates again. Looks like 2 more families, a husband, wife, and an infant, and another husband, wife, and 3 small children. So the first time I see them in the city directory is 1925, but that's because in this city, there's not a city directory for each year. On Ancestry, they skip from 1916 to 1925. But we know that he went into business for himself somewhere around 1918-ish. In 1925, Beverage Blue Book, Mohawk is listed in there. I find it weird to see the name associated with Mohawk Valley Bottling Works isn't Vincent, it's a William Lisowski. I did a quick research, and I found out that it's his brother, Bronislaw's son. And here's another bottle for you to look for, Jesse. Herkimer Bottling Company. 1930, their oldest son John is newly married and he lives there. Both sons work at the factory with Dad. 1936, Vincent's family is running the Mohawk Valley Bottling Company. John and Joseph are drivers for the bottling company, while Vincent's brother's family is running the bakery. It's called La Sanitary Bakery. The bakery is on the same street at 226 King Street, which brings us here. So here's the bakery. 1940, Vincent is 53 now, and both boys are married. So this kind of gives us a little idea of what the living situation looks like. Vincent and the 2 sons all say that they're head of household, which means that they are separate. But this says that they're all at the same address, 357. So it must have been set up like a small hotel. Vincent says that he owns the property, and the property is worth $12,000. The 2 boys are renting, so this tells me that it was a pretty decent-sized property. They conducted business here, and they all have room to live. That explains why Vincent was able to house so many other roommates at times. It's a shame it's gone that we can't see it anymore. In the 1940 directory, pretty much everything's the same, except Vincent's brother's family has branched off a restaurant. It's called Lisowski's. The address is 210 South Washington Street, and that takes us here. How I wish I was a millionaire that could just go around restoring all these old abandoned buildings. 1944, everything's the same except the restaurant now says Liquors. 1946, there's a mention in the paper. In the summer of 1946, Vincent's youngest child, Helen, just got married. 4 years later, in the 1950 census, she and her husband live with her parents. Vincent is 62 now. It looks like he's retired with no occupation listed. The oldest son, John, is manager of the company, and Joseph is a truck driver for the company. The next year in the directory, it still shows that Vincent is part of the company. 1955, Vincent dies at the age of 69. It says he ran the Mohawk Valley Bottling Works for the last 35 years. He died a couple days ago in the hospital after a brief illness. 4 years later, in 1959, they're still in business. That's the last directory that we have, though, and unfortunately there's no more mention of them in the papers after Vincent's death. I searched for both sons in the paper, and they were both mentioned for insignificant stuff like they attended a wedding, but nothing associated with the company. So I can't give an ending date for this company. So we know it started somewhere roughly around 1918-ish, and then it ended sometime after 1959. So they were in business for at least 40 years. The oldest son, John, died in 1983, but I can't find when Joseph died. I tried to find either of their obituaries, hoping that there maybe would be a little bit about the company, but I didn't find an obituary for either one of them. So this is Jesse's bottle. It's a really pretty Art Deco bottle, which right away should date it somewhere in the 20s to the 30s. I found another one on eBay, and someone on eBay is also selling this cool crate. And that's it for this one. I hope everybody has a happy, healthy, and blessed New Year. Thank you for watching.